The inmate who absconded from his work release at the Midwest Theater and caused a manhunt is sentenced in Scottsbluff County District Court. KNEB.TV News starts right now.
From your trusted source for news in western Nebraska and eastern Wyoming, this is KNEB.TV News. Presented by Platte Valley Companies, premier provider of financial services.
Hello, I'm Ryan Murphy. This is KNEB.TV News powered by Platte Valley Companies. Thanks for joining me. In our top story, there will be no prison for a Scottsbluff County inmate who escaped his work detail and led authorities on an hour-long manhunt last September. 21-year-old Aaron Wilder Jr. was apprehended about 5 blocks away from the theater after he absconded from his detail at the Midwest Theater, but his escape caused schools to go into secure status during that time. Earlier this month, he was sentenced to 364 days in jail and 18 months of post-release supervision after he had pleaded no contest to a Class 3 felony charge of escape when under arrest on a felony charge. Well, the Gordon woman, convicted on 2 counts of theft by deception involving a pair of Sheridan County organizations, has been sentenced. On Tuesday, District Judge Travis O'Gorman sentenced Crystal Friesman to 90 days in jail and 3 years probation to be served concurrently in separate cases tied to her former roles with the Rushville Housing Authority and the Gordon American Legion Baseball Organization. Friesman had originally faced 3 felony counts in each case, which were amended down to single counts in plea agreements reached in January. She had already started to pay back each organization, and at the time of sentencing was ordered to pay $1,324 to the sports group and $8,300 to the housing authority. And a Kimball man who was facing 2 accusers in child sexual assault cases has pleaded no contest to lesser charges. 47-year-old Chris Wilson was arrested last April following a Nebraska State Patrol investigation regarding a reported assault of a young child that had occurred in Kimball County in 2019. Earlier this month, Wilson pled no contest to amended charges of attempted intentional child abuse, a Class 4 felony, as well as a Class 1 misdemeanor charge of child abuse. Under the terms of the plea agreement, Wilson will also be on the Nebraska Sex Offender Registry for 25 years. He'll face a maximum of 2 years in prison when he's back in court on June 10th for sentencing. We'll have more news right after this.
Looking for free instead of fees? Platte Valley Bank can help you keep your finances moving forward with no ATM fees. Whether you're headed to the lake, the mountains, or just to the grocery store, you can enjoy the freedom of free ATM access anywhere, anytime. Platte Valley Bank. You belong here.
Uh-oh, you have to open the old gliding door to the patio again, but that thing stopped gliding long ago. Did you know that your old, ugly, hard-to-open gliding door is probably the #1 source of loss of heat in your home, and that broom handle lock is not secure? Renewal by Anderson's gliding patio doors are simply the best of the best, and Renewal has an incredible offer right now. Don't miss it. 20% off every door, plus no money down, no payments, no interest for 12 months. No payments until 26. Please book your free estimate right now at rbawyoming.com and start gliding again.
Welcome back. The Gering City Council took action on a couple of project bids during their meeting this week, including the purchase of a stationary generator for the fire department. A bid of just over $74,000 from Robinson Electric was selected, and while that is higher than the amount budgeted, Fire Chief Nathan Flowers said the department will forego other budgeted capital expenditures in order to ensure that funds are available for this project. Flowers described why a generator at the station has become important.
Trucks were starting to go with less generators now, and then we had a really big storm that knocked our power out, as most of you all knew. We always thought we didn't need a generator, but if the worst case happens is when we needed a generator, and the worst case happened during that storm. Structure fire wasn't able to fill up our bottles, our SCBAs, relying on Scottsbluff and Scottsbluff rural departments, but you know, looking forward and moving forward, I think it's a little bit better that we're prepared to do that.
Also approved was a $63,000 bid from Russell's Excavation for installation of 8 shade structures at Dome Rock Diamonds, a project being paid through an occupation tax grant to 308 United Softball and the city. Well, Governor Jim Pillen says he's encouraged that a review and subsequent changes to a rule defining waters of the United States, or WOTUS, will result in benefits to Nebraska farmers, ranchers, developers, businesses, and landowners. Pillen was among a group of governors who in early 2023 objected to the revised definition and sent a letter to President Joe Biden calling its implementation problematic. Pillen said the announcement by EPA Administrator Zeldin is a step in the right direction and will eliminate the needless and overregulation that has impeded landowners and agriculture. Evaluations of WOTUS was one of the more than 30 actions announced Wednesday through the EPA aimed at slashing regulations and reducing costs to American taxpayers.
When it comes to your health, you deserve the very best. At Morrill County Community Hospital, they provide top-notch care with compassion and expertise. From routine checkups to advanced surgeries, their dedicated team is here for you 24/7. With state-of-the-art technology and a patient-first approach, they ensure you and your loved ones receive the highest quality care. Because at Morrill County Community Hospital, your health is their priority. Visit Morrill County Community Hospital today in Bridgeport. Morrill County Community Hospital. Exceptional care right here at home.
I imagined retirement in a place where we could enjoy our golden years, where adventure and friendship are the only items on the schedule. The Garden Homes at Northfield gives us the luxury we planned for and peace of mind when it comes to convenience, safety, and comfort. We never have to stop and think about the day-to-day upkeep. We love to explore abroad, but most importantly in our backyard. So much to do, so much to see. Here at Northfield, we get the protection of life care, incredible tax benefits, and secured rates for aging services. It's peaceful, knowing that if our needs change, we'll be taken care of. And most importantly, that our kids will never have to make any tough decisions. There never seemed to be enough time to do all the things we wanted. Now we get to focus our energy on enjoying what this community has to offer. At the Garden Homes, life is ours again. A place we had dreamed about. A chance to focus on us.
Welcome to another edition of Cattle Call. I'm Susan Littlefield on the Rural Radio Network, and we are on location at Raising Nebraska. I got to tell you real quick, if you have not had the opportunity to bring your family here to the Nebraska State Fairgrounds and check out this building, I highly, highly recommend it. As it says behind me, Nebraska's not as flat as you think, so come out and check out all the hands-on agricultural stuff that is here. We just need a pen with some steers in it and a little feedlot explanation. And Brad, I think it would be even a better building than what it is. Of course, Cattle Call is brought to you by Wolf Auto, small town strong. And as we're on location and watching these markets today, as I mentioned, Brad Koima joins us. He is with Koima and Barlick out of Sioux Center, Iowa. What another week. I mean, I talk about the volatility and the craziness at this trade. I mean, you can almost get whiplash as you try to watch these markets as of late.
Well said. First of all, thanks for having me on. One of my favorite slogans, though, too, I was thinking about when you're giving that little preamble there at Nebraska. It's not for everybody. I think that's just awesome. Yeah. A lot of great people there. I do a lot of business there, too, by the way. The volatility, like you stated, I mean, we $11 rally in 5 trading days. Really, literally in 4.5 days, the cattle futures changed $11 100. Cash market went from last Thursday getting bid at 195 to Friday afternoon. Past 203. So yeah, it was as an old school fundamentalist, those kind of weeks, those kind of market actions are especially enjoyable to us because you finally can sit back and go like, well, how about that? The cash market actually made a difference. For a minute here, we're talking about what live cattle are worth, and we're not caught up in the latest tariff news or the latest economic news or the latest whatever, media hype of the sky is falling, which seems to be what they like to do. So yeah, a cash I think inspired rally here, and with the futures that trade at a discount like we're getting so used to, finally the futures do respond after the cash proves once again that the market's in pretty good shape.
You and I have had many conversations about the box beef movement and how it continues to trade. And obviously we've seen a growth this week. And then I saw a tieback back on Monday that said, all right, if we've got higher box beef, that means we've got to have some higher cash, or at least some standouts to wait till the 11th hour. Is that going to be a possibility? Higher cash in the north and get a feel good heading into the weekend?
That's kind of what I'm figuring on. And, to tie into your beef story a little bit, couple of things there. And I regret not bringing it up on last week's show. The other thing that happened last week was, we've talked about the negotiated cash trade bucket, right? 0 to 14 and 15 to 30. The number of cattle in that 15 to 30 was almost non-existent for a change, which was an indication that, hey, these packers are going to have to play ball a little bit more and try a little harder. So they sure did. Now, some of that box beef trade, and, I don't want to offend anybody, but, when the packer had to pay more for live cattle, what a coincidence that he asked more for the box beef as well. I think there's a little of that going on too. Okay. But I don't want to bore your audience with, details of the box beef, but there are some nuances here that are going on. February is always the hardest month of the year to sell the most expensive cuts. It's just what it is. Grilling season's over. You're through the holiday deal. You're through the Super Bowl parties. But the chuck, the grind has been just unbelievable. And boy, you saw a huge uptick in the volume of trade on that kind of stuff here at the beginning of the week, which I think is very encouraging. It would seem that what you're seeing is a consumer that is price point conscious. I don't know how to quite describe it, but is budget conscious, right? I've looked at, I got to do a presentation, so I'm putting together a PowerPoint, and I'm going to spend some time on demand. And you've got a flat poultry and pork demand has been flat. Beef is completely opposite. So the consumer taste seemed to be that, well, let's eat hamburger then instead of pork or chicken. I mean, they're eating some, but not the uptick that you're seeing in the grind. So yeah, I guess I think so. In terms of the cash market this week, the early indication this morning, there was, I would say, some low quality heifers that traded in Kansas at 200, which is 2 to 3 higher than last week on the good cattle. So I think they'll get more than 200 in the South, barring some sort of economic meltdown. And I think the North will be 3 to 5 higher than that. So I think 205 is in the cards. And I know there's people around here that are even a little bit more optimistic than that. But on a Wednesday, it's a little difficult to get real bold. But, I think 205, and maybe even with a little luck, a little better than that.
We'll take a little boldness once in a while. So, during this program, I always bring up comments about a listener or a viewer has a question for you. And I share that with you. Well, it just so happens that the event I'm at today with the Nebraska Sorghum, I have a cattle producer sitting right next to me. And so she's going to ask you the question directly. So I'm going to slide the camera over and let her ask her question.
Good morning, Brad. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, but I have a couple questions that I'd like to get your comments on. First of all, the number of feeder cattle that are out there. We had markets that were shut down for a couple of weeks due to extremely cold weather and terrible conditions. And we've got New World screwworm. We don't have the southern cattle coming up like we normally do, that they're trickling in. And yet we've got a feeder cattle futures market that doesn't seem anywhere clear, even close to the cash reality that we're seeing in these barns. I mean, we're seeing, feeder cattle close to 8 weights going for $3 now, and that futures market's way behind.
Yeah, I appreciate I'll do my best to try to answer that question. It gets a little bit involved. So talking about you're correct about what's going on with the southern border in terms of both, tariffs, and then also, a very, very slow opening, by the way, of the, the screwworm thing. It's much, much slower than what they anticipated that was going to be. There is some protocol that has to be done. So that feeder cattle index, to maybe help you out a little bit, the kind of feeder cattle that you're going to, and I buy cattle out of Nebraska too, and the Dakotas and stuff like that. The kind of feeder cattle you're talking about are a much better quality than the cattle that you're going to get quoted out of, like in Oklahoma City or a Joplin, Missouri, or something like that. Unfortunately, this feeder cattle index, which influences the futures market, is an index that's a broad index that includes all those areas. So, for instance, that index today, I think, is going to be up about $1.80 at 278.33. And March feeders are 279.50, give or take. So, I could say, well, based on that, it seems like we're kind of fairly priced. But I think the separation there is absolutely. I've seen all kinds of 8 weights bring up towards $3 or more. I was just offered some cattle for fall delivery that are way over $9 that are almost going to cost, $2.90. So I think that the thing is, the separation is you're getting an influence there of some of these cattle in the South that are probably $10, $12, $15, 100 less are impacting that feeder cattle index. The other thing on the feeder cattle, just to give you a little reality, is that you got record fund positions along the feeder cattle, and they're long for good reason. We've got the smallest cow herds since 1952. We got the smallest calf crop in 70 some years. There's just less of them, period. You've got the smallest amount of cattle available outside of feed yards to be placed as of January 1 in modern history. So, the funds see the same kind of fundamentals that you do and I do, and they've been influenced to buy them. If you did I'm getting way too long an answer for your question. I'm sorry, but the cattle crush, which would be, you take feeder cattle input price, the live cattle output price, and then the price of corn, you blend that all together. If you would do that, you would actually see that the feeder cattle are quite high, or the fat cattle are too low. So that, that would be part of my answer as well.
I agree with you completely on the cattle crush, but do you think that if there were ever any type of cash settlement for those feeder futures, years ago we used to have that, we don't have that anymore. There is no convergence anymore.
No delivery system, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. We've got a cash settlement deal on the hogs. Ask those guys how good that works. You get convergence for 5 minutes every other month. It's a joke. And the feeder cattle thing, I could not agree more. So I've sat through seminars because I kind of work hard at price discovery at the national level, and there are people that they want to do that with the live cattle contract. I said, no. We've got, if you had a delivery mechanism, where there's no place like a sale barn where you have true price. There's no other place that has more price discovery than there. If you've got a guy that thinks, hey, you know what, the feeder cattle is my best option futures to make a delivery, that's what they'll do. If they're too cheap, people like myself, an end user, will say, yeah, bring them. I'll take them, So it's you're right. The landscape changed, and not for the better when they took away the delivery system.
For our sale barns thriving and healthy.
Amen.
Thank you.
Well, wonderful. I always, it's kind of fun to bring somebody in to ask you a direct question. So as we get ready to wrap it up, we have to talk about this whole thing with tariff and recession worries. Do you see that kind of filtering into what we see in this cattle market moving forward?
Well, I think you'd have to be a naive or something, bumped your head real hard on something to not know that it's a factor. I've said on your show a number of times, uncertainty is usually bearish cattle. And I don't know, Susan, yesterday was an anomaly. Say that real fast. Yesterday was different than maybe I can ever remember, where you had just this complete implosion in the equity markets. The stock market had their biggest one-day loss ever, right? And yet cattle futures stayed right on through it and traded like a champ. Very impressive. And again, I think, some of that was derived from what has been a very real and a very strong cash market, which has helped. But at this point, I'm not an economist, but most economists would tell you that there's all kinds of indications that, our economy actually is not in a recession, or doesn't appear to be close to being in a recession. Now, could we get into a full-blown trade war and create some issues? Maybe. The media will probably hype it if they can. But specifically right now, okay, we actually import all kinds of slaughter cattle out of Canada. If there's a temporary shutdown, that's not even bearish. Okay. Mexico doesn't buy a lot of beef from us. They're down the list about fifth. But I at this point, I don't see that there's any disruption. Let's hope that this knife cuts hard and fast and we can seal this thing back up and get back to getting along with everybody. But that's why I've been a proponent of, I've been trying to say buy puts, leave your upside open, but let's be reasonable here. Things can change. That would be my mantra.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for taking some time. What is the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Check us out at kkvtrading.com or 712-722-0023 is the phone number. And I won't be here next week, but we'll see you the week after.
All right, we'll find somebody to fill those shoes for us for next week within your office. By the way, Cattle Call is being brought to you by Wolf Auto, small town strong. And always a reminder that commodity futures and options do involve a substantial risk of loss not suitable to all investors. And that's this week's Cattle Call on the World Radio Network.
Changing leaf colors means yard work. Your friends at Tri-City Stormwater wants to remind you of the proper way to dispose of fallen leaves. Leaves make great mulch for trees and bushes and compost for future gardens. The city also has yard waste bins, so they can dispose of all your leaves at the city compost facility. Always keep your leaves out of the gutters. Not only do they cause clogging and flooding, they can pollute our waterways by causing nutrient overload. So keep your yard looking good and your drinking water safe, because it's our water, our responsibility.
Let's take a look at your community calendar, brought to you by Riverstone Bank. The community calendar is brought to you by Riverstone Bank. We're local and we love our community.
Tired of feeling stuck? Not sure if you are on the right track? Platte Valley Bank can help keep your finances moving forward with checking account options to fit your lifestyle and an online account chooser to make finding the right account easy. Control your financial future with helpful budgeting tools and automatic savings plans. Now is the time to enjoy the ride with Platte Valley Bank. You belong here.
And finally tonight, a local couple has been given the green light from the Scottsbluff City Council on what they need to open a new business. Adam and Taylor Gallis hope to open In-Out Liquors at 615 South Beltline Highway East later this year. Adam told the council, as they sought a positive recommendation for their liquor license, that they plan to be a more modern place to buy beer, wine, and liquor.
I've currently been part of a Class C for about 13 years under my father's liquor license. I have about 20 years plus of restaurant experience. My wife and I, we own 4 companies right now, so hopefully adding this to our list.
The council did give a positive recommendation to forward on to the State Liquor Control Commission. The Gallises already own and operate several other businesses in town, including 24/7 Fitness, Which, and Qdoba. Well, that does it for us this time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there. We'll see you here next time.